What up, what up? Welcome on in to Inside Baylor Sports, the official daily podcast of Baylor Athletics. On today's show, we're talking Baylor golf. The women are heading to another NCAA tournament, and the men coming off a strong finish there in the Big 12 championships. The NFL draft is also underway. We'll talk Gabe Hall and also give you a sneak peek to the weekend ahead in Baylor Athletics. Don't forget, you can catch Inside Baylor Sports every weekday. You can also watch the video version for free over at BaylorPlus.com and on the Baylor Athletics YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, rate, and review the pod, and follow Baylor Plus today on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. It's the official content network of Baylor Athletics. Think Netflix for your Baylor Bears. Download the app on your mobile device and sign up for your free 7-day trial today at BaylorPlus.com. It's Friday, April 26th, 2024. Justin Hoff alongside the Baylor Bear insider Jerry Hill. And Jerry, let's begin with golf. Let's start with the men's team. Strong finish in the Big 12 championship. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I thought they had a really strong last day. They had one of the best rounds of the day, and I thought they even finished strong with Johnny Kiefer birdieing the last hole. So finishing fourth overall. Like I said, a really good round today. I believe it was 4 under for the day. Again, one of the best rounds of the day, and finished fourth in the team standings. Johnny Kiefer, a top 10 finish, so he was all tournament. Just a great tournament for him, I thought. 3 under 69 today. But overall, I thought he played well all week. I believe he was 5 under for the week. So, great job by him. But then particularly, in that last round, Zach Heffernan shooting 2 under and Tyler Eisner as well. Both of them shooting 2 under 70. What a great day for them. Great round. And I think that does give you some momentum going in. Obviously you wanted to win a conference championship. You didn't do that. But, man, they've got the momentum going into postseason when the NCAA regionals are announced next week. I believe it's Wednesday that those will be announced. They're going to go wherever they're sent. But I think this is a team that's very capable of making it to the NCAA championships based on the way that they played this week at the Big 12 championships.
When you think about it, Baylor men's golf, they're playing some of their best golf right now. They won the Aggie Invitational a few weeks back. Strong showing here at the 12 championships. Speaking of a team that's also playing some of its best golf, the women's golf team. And they got earned the number 7 seed at the NCAA Las Vegas Regional. This team will make its 7th straight NCAA Regional appearance. Jay Goebel does it again. He's got his team peaking once again at the right time.
That's what he does. I mean, and he's, in his 12 years here at Baylor, it's kind of the trademark of his teams. You're probably going to be a little slow start in the fall, maybe struggle some in the fall. I remember even the year that, in 2015, when they were the national runner-up, they were not a good team in the fall. I mean, I don't even remember where they were ranked, but it was way down there, way past 100. And then they wind up being number 2 in the country. So it's what his teams do. They may start slow, but it's not how you play in October, November. It's really how you play in April and May and into June. So, his team, again, is peaking at the right time. They finished 4th in the Big 12 as well. And again, I think they have that momentum, going into postseason play. And they have shown down the stretch here that they can play with anybody. So they are very capable. I know they're seeded 7th. Only the top 5 of each of the 6 regionals will advance to the NCAA championships. But at 7, that means they're right there. I mean, they're very capable. I believe Purdue might be 6. Cal maybe is in there as well. But this is a regional they can get through. Playing in Vegas, what happens in Vegas, maybe it shouldn't stay in Vegas. Let's publish it on Baylor Plus when they get through to the NCAA championship. We will shout it from the rooftops of what happened in Vegas.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, let's put it on BaylorBears.com and all over social media. And so for Baylor Women's Golf, the Bears will be appearing in an NCAA tournament for the 11th time in the last 12 possible seasons. You got to put that note in there because of COVID during Goebel's tenure. Jay Goebel, of course. Baylor was a number 2 seed in the Pullman Regional up Northwest in 2023, finishing 4th to clinch its 5th NCAA championship appearance in the last 6 seasons, one of just 8 programs to accomplish that feat. The Las Vegas Regional features a 12-team field, number 1 seeded UCLA, Arkansas 2, Arizona at 3, future Big 12 conference member, Florida State at 4, Cal at 5, the number 6 seeded Purdue Boilermakers, 7, there's Baylor, Oklahoma, also from the Big 12 at 8, Colorado State 9, Kent State 10, number 11, Xavier, and 12th seeded Dartmouth make up the regional. So looking forward to that. This gets all underway May 6th through the 8th at the Spanish Trail Country Club out there in Vegas. All right, going from Vegas to Detroit, Michigan. That's where the NFL draft is. I just got to be honest with you, Jerry. So back in 2016, I was at the NFL draft. Corey Coleman. I've been to a few NFL drafts. Of course, you were at that draft as well. I was very sick. We went to a game at Wrigley Field.
Yeah.
But that was a fun experience. And I like the fact the drafts move around some. But I'm going to be honest with you. In New York City, it's a different vibe at Radio City Music Hall. And I almost wish it went back there. I just Detroit, I'm from Ann Arbor, Michigan. But Detroit, I'm sorry, should not have the NFL draft.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And you know how painful that is for me to agree with you on anything. But I liked it when it was in New York. It seemed like more of an event, kind of an extravaganza. And it was just a cool event there. And I was able to go there a couple times. If I remember right, and this seems odd, but I remember being kind of in the shadows in the green room the year that Robert and Kendall were both drafted in the first round. So I remember being there for that. And obviously the time in 16 when Corey was drafted. But it's just an event in New York. And I get it, just kind of like, I'm sure Yormark is eventually going to move the Big 12 basketball tournaments around just because that's what he does. But I like having it in Kansas City, and I like the NFL draft in New York, and I like the softball College World Series in Oklahoma City. So again, maybe call me that grumpy, get off my lawn guy, but I like things how they, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It was great in New York. I do kind of like moving it around some, but you're right. I think it should go back to New York at some point, and it at least needs to be in the rotation.
Yeah, and I get all that. Hey, it's 2024. We got to adapt. We got to evolve. But you're spot on. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm just saying, not every city. We don't need to go across all the NFL franchises, all 32, and make a spot for all of them. There's certain spots. Vegas, I thought Nashville did it really well. Chicago was cool. New York. Detroit just misses the mark. I'm sorry. And once again, I'm a Michigander. I'm from there, but this is not one of the spots that should be having the NFL draft. And hopefully every 4 or 5 years, I definitely think it should make a trip back to New York City. So both of us have been there. Hope to get back one day here with the Baylor Bears. This season, the guy we're looking at getting drafted is Gabe Hall. A lot of people think second day, third day, a type pick. Gabe Hall has always had the measurables, did really good at the, some of the pre-draft stuff. What do you think about Gabe Hall and his prospects of getting drafted?
Yeah, like you said, he's got all those measurables. He's got all the stuff that NFL people like. He's a freak athlete. Particularly coming off the edge like that. He's got the size. He's got the speed. His productivity didn't always show up on film. And I don't think we can lie about that. But he does have that potential, and he did show up, on NFL Pro Day and all of that. That I think he's shown enough, And even in times in games, he kind of flashed. He wasn't that consistent every down guy, but man, he flashed at times and showed you kind of what he can be. And I think the NFL folks will say we can make him that every down guy. So I think that's why he gets drafted fairly high, is because they see the potential, they see what he can be, because he's shown enough on film of this is what Gabe Hall can be if he, has that motor every down.
Yeah, and we've seen it. Hey, the film don't lie. Right? That's saying. You see it, the production, and he's had some good production, but at times I think there's people who have wanted more, right? Like everybody wants more from us, right? You can always do better, and so I think there's opportunity for him to do better. But also the fact that he did so well during January to March with all those different things that were going on, and get ready for the NFL draft. I think that speaks volumes, and we've seen that over the years, that when you perform well in those practices, you get the attention of scouts and they take you. And so that's why those practices are so important. So we'll keep an eye on Gabe Hall this weekend, and hopefully he gets picked up, another Bear drafted in the NFL. All right, let's turn our attention to a busy weekend in Baylor athletics. The golfs are behind us. Tennis is waiting for the NCAA selection show coming up here soon. But, A&T, we know they're in action. We talked about them yesterday. Outside of that, you got a little bit of track going on. And then really a busy and a very important weekend, Jerry, for both our baseball and our softball programs.
Yeah, I mean, baseball got a big win the other night against Sam Houston. And I did think it was important, Justin. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if the midweek games really count, that kind of thing. But coming off that weekend where you had the great series opener against Kansas, and then you kind of fell flat the next two games, I think they needed that on Tuesday night to get that win, get a little momentum back, and go into this series against West Virginia with a little momentum. That's a good RPI win. They're one of the best, non-Power 5 teams in Texas. And that was, like I said, that's a good win to get. And I thought they were good in all areas. Pitching obviously was very good. Jared Matheson had a really good start. Kobe Andrade was just nails there at the end, but the hitting was there. It was just all there. So I was really impressed with them in that game. That kind of showed me, that they didn't stay down after that Kansas series. So it was good to see them get back up. This is a tough series, though, at West Virginia, a ranked team. But, I think you go in there with the hopes, maybe to win the series, but at least get one game out of those three. And I think, that kind of keeps your head above water. And again, we've talked about it. The goal is to get to the Big 12 tournament. So keep winning games. You don't have to win every series, but if you keep winning games, if you don't get swept in any of these series, you're going to keep your head above water. You're going to get to the Big 12 tournament in Arlington, and then who knows? But yeah, I think you go into this one hoping to win at least one, but maybe you get lucky and win the series.
And I'll say this much, Jerry. Hey, I'm in Bridgeport, Fairmont, West Virginia. And the weather here is tremendous. And this weekend it's supposed to be about 80 degrees. So wow. Baylor baseball, I know have made their way in. Obviously, they're here. They brought some of that warm weather with them. So maybe that helps here this weekend. It's never easy for the Bears to play in Morgantown, and we've had some challenges with some of our sports, but that's a long trip, right? Long flight. But yes, as you said, if you can get one game, they're really in the mix. You definitely don't want to get swept because that could put you behind. Now you're having to kind of a bit of an uphill battle. But if you can find a way to win the series, man, if you can find a way to win this series, this, in my opinion, would be the biggest series win of the season to date for Baylor.
Certainly the best team they would have beaten in a series, I would say, for sure. I mean, I look back on BYU, and I think that was significant in the fact that you swept the series. But and on the road as well, when you had really struggled on the road. And so that was big. But you're right. I mean, this would be the best series win over a ranked team, over a team is going to go to the NCAA tournament, even a potential host if they finish strong. So, yeah, I think this would be really big. for baseball. But yeah, I want to be greedy. I want to say let's get the series win, but let's get a win. Let's win that Friday game against when Marriott's pitching and just kind of set the tone for the series. And that's what he's done a pretty good job of during conference play is he has set the tone with that first game.
Yeah, I'm at a hotel I think you would like. His last name matches up very nicely with the hotel that I'm at here in West Virginia. But yeah, we're looking forward to the weekend. A 3-game set against the West Virginia Mountaineers. And over on softball, they dropped a midweek game to Utah. Of course, they're out in Utah country, as we learned earlier in the week, what you call a Utah native. And this weekend got a series against BYU. And really looking forward to, just a big series for Baylor softball and more wins. And much like women's golf, right? Trying to peak at the right time, Jerry. I mean, that's the piece right there. How do you get this team to perform its best? We know what they did in February. Can you get the team back to what it was doing in February?
Well, I think a start to that was sweeping the series this past weekend against UCF. I mean, that was huge, Justin. I mean, that was kind of one of those breaking point type, scenarios where, if you go in there and get swept, say, you could be looking toward the end of the season. But instead, they swept and obviously kept their head above water. But I think to me, that pretty much kind of solidified the NCAA tournament. Now you go out and try to do more. I think it's going to be a long shot to get a host site. Particularly with the loss to Utah. But that's a Utah team that's fighting to get into they were in the World Series just last year, but now they're fighting to get into the NCAA. They were a 45 RPI going into that game. So that was a team that was really – and BYU is kind of in that same boat. They're in the 50s, I think, in the RPI. So they're a team that needs some wins to get in. So they're going to be maybe a little bit hungrier than Baylor is, but Baylor needs to match that. This is a series – I feel like you need to win. You don't need to win just one game. You need to win the series, kind of set the tone. And if you can do that and then maybe sweep Houston in that final weekend, you have kind of set the tone and you've built momentum going into the postseason play, into that Big 12 tournament. And if you can do some damage there and continue to build that momentum, I think one of the big parts, Justin, is they're just not healthy right now. They've got so many players are out. We talked to him, earlier this week, and I think Glenn said they have like 11 healthy players out of their 25. I mean, that's incredible to have that many players out, and they're still winning though. I mean, the fact that they were able to sweep UCF with that kind of banged up lineup, that tells you a lot about, this team, its ability to kind of overcome things. And, if they can keep doing that, I think they've got the confidence that they can. So if they can kind of string together some this weekend, get a series win, and then sweep Houston, it'd be a great thing for this team, even as banged up as they are, to get into postseason play with that kind of momentum.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you think about it, this team probably will not be back to full strength. You think about the exact roster they had entering the season to have everyone available. And so you're hoping that, hey, you can get as many to full strength, right? And put those pieces together. You got a couple weeks here before the NCAA tournament starts. And so you got some time to get everything clicking on the right cylinder. I think this team – particularly late in games. I know early in the season there were some opportunities, right? Some 6th and 7th inning games where we had the lead, we gave up the lead and lost the game. And I know the games we got to be thinking about and hopefully learning our lessons. But I almost think too, our pitching against UCF was unbelievable, right? And the pitching was great. Offensively, just hoping for more production, right? Just getting a little bit more of a cushion for those pitchers. And I think if we can just find a way to, whether it's manufacture runs, I know, Shaylin Govan, she's been pitched around. I mean, her walks, it's almost like Barry Bonds, not a lot of people are pitching to her. So the impact of what she would have normally isn't there because she's just getting a base on ball. So I think if Baylor can somehow get healthier and put it together and get some of that offensive production going, this team could make a run in May.
Yeah, and you were mentioning Shaylin Govan, and she's number 2, or at least going into that Utah game, she was number 2 in the nation in on-base percentage, somewhere in the upper 500s, like 582. Crazy. I think she had like 35 walks, been hit a couple times. So she's had an amazing season. It's just sometimes it's hard when they just won't even pitch to you. There's some, not all of them are intentional walks, but they're kind of maybe unintentional intentional walks. So yeah, they don't want to pitch to her, and they know that's Baylor's one weapon. Although I would put Emily Hott in that same category, but Shaylin is the one player that can really beat you with one swing of the bat. And so, if there's anybody on base, or if there's a base open, they're going to walk her. So what they do need, and they've gotten some of it with Sydney Collazos. If she can get hot and she can be a good bat behind her, which I think she got a couple of hits against Utah the other night. So I think if they can do that, then I think they've got a chance to really kind of give Shaylin some better looks at the plate.
Yeah, and I'll say, hey, with Shaylin, some fans and some people out there might be upset or angry that they're basically putting her on base. But that's the ultimate sign of respect. And ultimately for Baylor, you have to make teams pay. And so what you're saying is spot on, Jerry. You got to get people on base. I mean, if the bases are loaded, not teams are going to walk a run in. So they're probably going to be forced to pitch to her at that point, right? Some might, but most would probably pitch to her. But that's the situation. Or when she gets on base, you got to bring her around to score. And so there's been opportunities this season where, on the former and the latter, we just haven't been quite good enough to this date.
Yeah, and to your point about walking them when the base is loaded, Shelby Freidenberg, who played here at Baylor, I remember when she was at Bruce Villetti playing softball there. I believe it was Crawford that they were playing, and Crawford did that exact thing. They were like, Shelby Freidenberg is not about to hit a grand slam home run against us. So they walked her with the bases loaded to give up a run, but they were not going to give up a home run. And I feel like in some cases, that's kind of how people see Shea is, we're not going to give her a homer. We may give her first base, but we're not going to give her a home run.
But make that tough decision, because that's a tough decision as an ultimate competitor. Are you going to walk in a run? And there's not a lot of coaches, maybe at the high school level it's easier, but at the collegiate level in a big-time conference like the Big 12 in the competition, it's going to be very difficult for them to make that run or make that call. But I will say, hey, I love the strategy, and I've always been a strategy guy in sports. It don't matter what the sport is. The strategy from a press conference and what you tell the media, the coaches, the other opponent, like there's a lot of pieces in what you can do. The strategy to what you tell your team, that how you call timeouts, what you draw up in timeouts, like all these kind of things are part of the game. And so I love the strategy play, but if it's used against you, you just got to make the other team pay.
And that's probably why you're such a Nikki Collin fan as well, because she is so good at those out of bounds plays, the strategy, stuff like that, end of game plays, end of quarter plays. But yeah, that is where strategy comes in. And softball, baseball, those are strategy sports. I mean, sometimes people don't see it all, but there is so much strategy, moving players around and, in and out, particularly in softball where you can sub in and out a little bit. There is so much strategy involved in this sport. And that's where coaching comes in. You've got to make those decisions. And I think Glenn Moore, Brittany Newman, and that Hoot, they do such a good job with that. Yeah, we'll see how it goes the rest of the year, Justin. But I just think with what they've been able to do with such a banged up lineup, I just send them kudos for what they've been able to do and kind of keeping things together.
And of course, Baylor can field also in action this weekend. The Big 12 Outdoor Championships coming up here soon, Jerry. Track and field, I know they're hoping that track heats up. No more rain for them.
Yeah, Desert Heat Classic, man. It'll be hot in Tucson. So it'll be heating things up. They'll be ready to go. And then Big 12, like you said, Big 12 championships just around the corner. right here in River City, the Clyde Hart Track and Field Stadium. So really cool deal. I've been to a couple that Baylor have hosted, and those are great events. And it's always a little exciting when you're the ones hosting. I don't know, it's probably a lot on Michael Ford and his crew, but it's really fun when it's right here in Waco, and we get to see some of the best athletes in the country.
That'll do it for today's edition of Inside Baylor Sports, a Sport and Story production. Thanks for listening. For Jerry Hill, I'm Justin Hall. Have a great Friday, and Sic 'em Bears.
Sic 'em Bears.